Ah, good evening, my dear watchers. It is I, Count Dracula, saying good evening to all of you. But if you give me one moment, there's something I need to show you. Sometimes it's kind of hard to show you folks my fangs going in and out. You see, that's one thing about us vampires, they're retractable. But since this new tablet makes me able to show you how retractable my fangs are, so I don't have to go like this every time. Well, it's been like 2 years since the first time since I've been doing this review as Count Dracula. But some of you are wondering, what is my origin? What is my background? What is it about me? It makes me become what I am, and make you Dracula lovers love watching me again and again doing my review. So, to celebrate my 2nd year anniversary, I am going to give you the secret origin of Dracula. And let's talk about Dracula, shall we? You see, a long time ago, there was a writer who goes by the name of Bram Stoker. And he was working on a book, a first vampire book he ever written. But of course, Dracula wasn't exactly the first book ever written in history. You see, a long time ago, there was a heartthrob poet. The school bus dropping the children of the night. Anyway, children of the night. How annoying they are. Anyway, you see, the very first story of vampires ever written was written by this guy, who is a heartthrob poet, who goes by the name of Lord Rathbun. Oh no, not Lord Rathbun. Lord Barryman. Lord Bowen, that's his name. Lord Barron was his name, and he wrote the very first poem of the vampire. And for those of you who never read his poem or find the audio book of his poem, look it up on YouTube. There's a good YouTube audio poem of Lord Byron's vampire. And then this guy who goes by the name of John Polidori, who picked up where Lord Byron left off and made the first vampire book ever written, and it was called The Vampire. But of course it didn't involve me, it involves a British Englishman who goes by the name of Lord Rathbun. And you know, I met Lord Rathbun. I never liked him. Even though he is an English gentleman, he's not exactly a gentleman towards women. He likes to treat his women like cattle. As for me, I treat him with respect. Sorry. And then another story written goes by the name of J. Sheldon Lefanour. And it was a first vampire book about a female vampire. Goes by the name of Carmilla. It's a story about a young girl who meets this 18-year-old girl who turns out to be a vampire. And she's interested in the girl. And that vampire girl is Carmilla. And believe it or not, the book is very erotic. And it turns out that Carmilla is a lesbian. Trust me, I know, I met her. she's a very Carmilla is a very beautiful woman, but sometimes she's very interested in women. So, we only get along because we share the same type of blood we love. And then there was another vampire book, and it was called Vani the Vampire, or The Feast of Blood. And this here is the oldest vampire about a Frenchman named Vani, who is a very ladies' man, very charming, and he loves to party. I met Vani myself. He knows how to party. But when it comes to midnight, he gets really hungry. So he's pretty cool to hang out in parties. It's just, I hate it when he gets really hungry. Anyway, after those stories were written, Bram Stoker got his inspiration from those books to write his own vampire book from this. The Book of Dracula, the original novel itself. You would say this book is very dry, but if you try to skip all the dry notes, the story itself is very good. And it is true, in this original book, Dracula was never romantic. He was just a man who was interested in, Dracula, in this book, I was never romantic back then. I was interested in one thing, my evening drink. But what you did not know, Bram Stoker was actually calling the book The Undead, and the leader and the vampire in the story, he called the vampire Vampire, Count Vampire, until he heard, and of course he also picked a little something from a real case. And it's about a woman who goes by the name of Elizabeth Bathory. She killed about a dozen young virgin girls, and even royalty, until, for her punishment, she had her servants beheaded and her bricked up in her own room, until she died of starvation and madness. But also Bram Stoker heard about a dictator, a ruler of Transylvania, who wasn't a vampire to begin with, and he goes by the name of Vlad Dracula, or Vlad Tepes, known as the Impaler. He was a bloodthirsty ruler. But Bram Stoker loved the name Dracula, so therefore he changed the vampire's name and the name of the book to Dracula. Not bad. And then it's been used in praise for a long, long time. Dracula, it became a huge success. Until when the silent film came about. Bram Stoker's widow would sue the movie company if they use the Dracula's name. Although there is another silent film with Dracula in it, where it was lost, called Death of Dracula, but he wasn't a vampire, just a piano teacher who runs an asylum. But he had fangs and claws in that silent film, which it was lost. But there was another vampire movie. A lot of people say it was lost, but now it's found. And I found this. Horror Classic Collection, and the movie Nosferatu. Now, of course, here's the movie poster of Nosferatu. Even though it was a silent film of the time, it is pretty entertaining. Very entertaining indeed. I mean, if you can just, stop whining about how silent films are, and just read the words and see how they made the movie is quite good. And the actor who played the vampire, They couldn't call him Dracula, so they named him Count Orlok. But I have Nosferatu with the real original name before they changed it to Count Orlok. And the actor who played him is Max Schreck, and this is what he looks like in the silent film. I know what you mean. More rodent than Romeo, huh? Now, of course, to the movies I have, when talkies came about, Universal decided to make their first horror movie ever made in talkies. And of course, the legendary Universal Dracula, starring the great Bela Lugosi, who played Dracula. And this movie is an all-time classic, and it's very popular in both America, England, and also Mexico, because they made a Spanish version with all the Mexican actors playing the characters. And I have to say, Bela Lugosi, who plays Dracula, he is number one. I love the guy. He was good to play Dracula. And then, back in the 50s, there was a British studio who goes by the name of Hammer, who decided to make their own style of vampire, and their first Dracula they ever made was, of course, Horrors of Dracula, starring Christopher Lee. Now, Christopher Lee, he is really good as Dracula, but he hates being typecast. But he is a legend in the British cinema. And of course, he shows some more sexuality than Bela Lugosi ever could. And as for Warner Brothers, they tried to make another adaptation. Well, besides that remake of Dracula, starring Frank Langella. But also Universal also made this. Van Helsing, starring Hugh Jackman, which I have to say was a good movie. I know some of you people hate Van Helsing, but to me, I like it. Because they made Van Helsing a cool character. Not many people never thought of that, huh? And then, once again, Universal tries to do a remake of Universal Monsters, so therefore they made this. Dracula Untold. The British actor did okay, but my problem with this movie, it should have more into the story. I mean, it's starting to become the same old cliche story that, well, let's just say it's not all that memorable. It's too cliche and too obvious for a movie. I'd say it's good, but I wouldn't say it's bad either. It's just too cliche that it gets pretty boring. Now, there is one man who is actually Italian, Francis Coppola. He decided to make his own version of Dracula. So what he did is he took the original novel from the book and make his own version and called it Bram Stoker's Dracula. Which I have to say, it is a good adaptation. It's a lot closer to the original novel. Except my problem is why they had to make this Dracula look so laughable. I mean, in the original novel, I, Dracula, have long black hair with a black robe with a high collar. But I have white hair, pointy ears, and a white mustache, short hands, long fingernails, hair on my palms. But when I drink blood, I look younger, and my white hair turns to black. And I did not have these buns on my head, like in this movie! Yeah. And of course, this Dracula I've seen was created by Wes Craven. He's a good He's a good horror movie creator, since he made Nightmare on Elm Street. But he made this movie, Dracula 2000. starring Gerard Butler as Dracula. That's where I got this style from him. I like his style, so therefore I copied his look. Long black trench coat, black shirt, black pants, khakis, the best part. I like his style, but I can't wrap my head that saying that I, Dracula, was Judas Priest. Nah, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm Fred Tepish back then, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And of course, there is another Dracula from this very good movie here, Monster Squad. A group of kids who knows that there are monsters ready to create havoc in the world. So now this one kid and a group of other kids, they group up together to battle the monsters. It's like the Little Rascals versus the Universal monsters. The Little Rascals, they are the classic. And then back in the 70s, the Comics Code decided to remove the Comics Code, since the Comics Code was destroying most of the comic books. So therefore, Marvel decided to make their own version, Marvel Comics that is, make their own version, Tomb of Dracula. This here is a picture of the first Dracula ever made in comic book history. That's when I started wearing a mustache, huh? And then there is this other comic book company who calls himself Dale, where this time they made their own Dracula version, except make him to become a superhero. But if you ask me, this is a rip-off of Batman, because of the look of his costume. I mean, he looks exactly like Batman. I mean, look at this. I mean, I like the idea of me becoming a hero, but wearing a bat costume? Not my style. Speaking of Batman, I have this one. Batman vs. Dracula. And it was based from the book of Batman and Dracula, but unlike the comic book where I bit Batman and he became a vampire, this one, Batman defeated Dracula, and all the vampires that he turned in Gotham, he turned them back to normal. But this was an interesting movie and very entertainable. And now in the comic book world, there's another comic book, and it's from Marvel, where I battle against Deadpool, the Merc with the Mouth. Now, if you expect me to review it, I'm gonna let Multi-Voice Reviewer review this for you and have Deadpool as a guest appearance. But to make a long story short, I'm supposed to be married to a succubus who is the queen of all monsters, but Deadpool fell in love with her instead, and I got ticked about it. You know, I hate comic books. They never do make my character exactly the way they're supposed to. Seriously, I hate comic books. And then there are a lot of kid-friendly versions of Dracula, like on the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, where their version of Dracula, he's black and he acts like the father from Sanford and Son. And then there is this heartwarming and very adorable cartoon I saw called Mina and the Count. It started from What a Cartoon Show from Cartoon Network, but Nickelodeon owned the right and made, and continuing on, but sadly it was a short run. But if you can find it on YouTube, they're very entertaining. Mina and the Count. And then became the inspiration for this heartwarming movie, Hotel Transylvania, starring Adam Sandler doing the voice of me. Adam Sandler, he's good, it's just I don't like all of his movies. At least he doesn't go like this. Ha 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 ha, go up! I mean, that is so annoying. And now I hear on the sequel of Hotel Transylvania, Mel Brooks is playing Dracula's father named Vlad. And also, why is it that only Jewish comedians make my character so funny? I mean, Adam Sandler, Mel Brooks, heck, even Leslie Nielsen from Dracula Dead and Loving It. I mean, they are Jewish, but they are so dang funny. It makes me want to get the cut of their jib. And yes, I have seen Hotel Transylvania. I haven't seen the sequel yet. But here's one thing I want to say. I never go blah, blah, blah. I mean, what is that about? I mean, that is so stupid. And then we get on to video games now. There were other video games they made of me, but I'm talking about the most famous one of all. Castlevania. And then they made me turn out to be a hero on the latest one, Castlevania Lords of Shadow and Lords of Shadow Part 2, where I take on the devil himself. If you haven't seen my review of Castlevania or Lords of Shadow Part 2, you should stop this video and go on over and watch my review. Heck, Castlevania was my very first review I ever done. Well, I guess this will be the end of Dracula's secret origin. So for any of you who likes the secret origin of yours truly, please leave a comment down below, hit like, subscribe, and do not forget to share on Facebook. Let your friends know more about me. Now, if you don't mind, I'm hungry now. See ya.